and she was telling me about a picture she saw.
I
The woman,
said, "Whoa, look,
the woman was 6 feet tall,
hey."
and her husband was about 5'6",
I
five
said
seven.
that nigga
And the look
ATF
of
just
their
showed up.
eyes,
Hey,
it was. It's like you were saying earlier that we are different people. The look that they had in their eyes, the way they were looking, it was something like she'd never
I
seen
said,
before.
"Hold up."
I'm
Hey, I
wondering,
said that
Chief.
nigga ATF just showed up. Hey, I
I'm
said
getting a
the
lot of
truth will never
emails and I'm getting a
fold up.
lot of inquiries
Hey,
about this DNA.
hey, hey,
Everybody's paying for these
hey.
DNA tests. Are those DNA tests valid? And if they are, what do they tell us?
I am a computer science scientist by degree. I am also an
What the
engineer.
business said? What it do? What it did? What's
I deal
cracking?
with
What's
black
popping?
and
What
white,
y'all?
and I
What
deal with
y'all on?
common sense. They have never really been scientific proven unless you've taken a DNA test for paternity. So if you want to take a DNA test
Y'all know
and
what
go
I'm on.
dig up the oldest ancestor you have in your church or your family cemetery, by all means go take a DNA test because you're doing it with your relatives. How is it possible for native people who converted to Christianity or took European names, where are these surnames based upon? Because it's European. I have a serious problem with it. Oh, sure, you'll be genetic cousin, but you're not blood cousin. Yes, the improvement. How is DNA going to tell me who my relative was 10,000 years ago? It's not a scientific fact. It's a guess, like Einstein's theory of relativity. It's never been proven. They take it to be fact. But you have people out there that live and die by DNA. I don't believe in it. I don't need it. I will never take one. Why should I take one if I can go back to 1725? Documentation on my family. I can go back another 60 years with all stories. I'm not going to take one. I think it's laziness when people get into it. And what people really need to do, your ancestors, your great grandma or your great aunt or great grandpa left you something. And when he said, my mother was an Indian, my daddy was an Indian, so what does make you think that you're not an Indian? The blood just died out and disappeared with you?
Right. Let's go.
This is how colonial law has come into play.
Let's go.
Everyone needs to go research the census of 1930.
Mm.
Take my word for it. Go read it.
Well, what will we find in the census of 1930?
Race classification that is biased. And what I mean by that, if your mother was an Indian and your father was black, you were black.
But I
If
thought,
your mother was white and your father was an Indian, or vice versa, you were Indian or you were white. Any drop of black blood they claim made you black. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it very carefully. Black is a color, not a necessity. So what most people don't understand, by not studying the racial law, when those folks came out slavery and everybody under the umbrella of Negro, you don't know what your ancestors are, so you have to go by your own your oral stories, or do some detective work by becoming a forensic
What's
genealogist
up, Miss One?
and
What's going on?
dissect the situation. How do you dissect it? I said it about 20 minutes ago.
What up? What up?
Learn the plantation. Learn what type of plantation it was. As a matter of fact, check the type of pottery. that your ancestors made. You don't even find no African making Native American pottery, or vice versa. He made the pottery of his tribe. Look at the baskets. See what the baskets are. Was a Native American basket? African basket. What tribe? None of it is the same. It's comparable.
Hmm.
It will tell you. These are key things folks miss. And you shouldn't. That's why I'm pointing these details out to you to look for. Luckily, I'm speaking tonight from my own experience. This is my story. There are a lot of natives out there. Why do you always talk about history? Because it applies to me. This is my story. You went to Oklahoma. We didn't. And there's another thing. If you went to Oklahoma, the same skin tone you and I are now, or you lived on a reservation, on that reservation, you are what your tribe was. Whether you was Ute, Swamp, Cherokee, Choctaw, you're on the reservation, that's who you are. You're living out in the community, you're Negro or you're colored or you're white, depending on what community you live in. If you're native and you're living in a majority community, you as white. If you live in a majority black community, they classify you as black. These are things folks are not understanding, but when you go back and look at the census enumerators, it tells you this. The best thing everybody can do that's listening to me right now is study the history of the census. Not the census.
Oh, shit.
Study the history of it.
Like I
when you
forgot.
study the history
You
of
ain't
it,
call me.
go and look at the state and local statute codes of laws that govern race.
Hey, you know I be forgetting shit.
Because if you find a community with 500 muskies or 500 mulattoes, what do you mean by muskie? Muskie is what they call a Native American mixed with an African. That offspring is a muskie. If an Indian is mixed with white, they call them mulatto then. These different words and phrases they're playing with. Folks don't understand it.
Chief, what was the purpose of marching people into Oklahoma?
Land, bottom line.
Hmm.
And let me tell you something. There are more resistance with going to Oklahoma than the books really want to tell. The Seminoles fought a 50-year war. If you read Jackson's diary, I love to read diaries of his people. And Jackson's diary was the Seminole War, his classification of that, and said, oh my Lord, this is a Negro war. That's in his diary. So we have to understand something here. Let's take the term maroon. Black and red equal maroon. This is how it's taught to me. So the natives and the Indians in South Carolina that ran away in the swamp and had offspring,
I'll come over there
they
early
called
tomorrow.
them maroons.
I'll come over there
This is in
before I go
South
to
Carolina
work.
congressional record. Now let's talk about the black Seminole. We're talking a totally different person.
Because I got to get up earlier
Black Seminole,
tomorrow anyway, so
according to the congressional record,
I'll just shoot
is
over
a
there.
former slave who ran away and lived among the Indians. Now when we get down to Florida, we have black Seminoles, we have maroons, they done group everybody together. So now they say black Indians. Well, how so? When you got a mixture of a native and an African. Another word for that you will hear your grandmother say is Blackfoot, because Blackfoot is the offspring of a native and an African. That's not the Blackfoot tribe. that was the derogatory word that was used. There wasn't no Blackfoot down in the South, not in South Carolina and Georgia. So your parents could be right, and your parents are right saying they're native, but they're wrong by saying Blackfoot because these tribes were in the area. So you have that right. So what do you have to do now to clear the situation? What you have to do now is sit down and start studying old colonial maps. Look at tribal territory maps and follow those maps back up. Don't start now and work your way back. Go to the earliest time of invasion and follow the colonies and watch how the land is vineyard. Land doesn't go nowhere. The name of places change. You will identify with the area that your tribe was most dominant in or that tribal town. So now you know what tribe you descend from. It's not mathematics. It's not hard. It's taking the time out to detail and study your history. And that's why I'm here tonight to give you this information that has been in my family for years, whether they talked about it or not. You're wasting your time, some of you, to go look across the border, across the water to Africa, and your ancestors ain't never been the way that they are. Most older generation, 3 generations back, if you were from the back boondocks, you didn't migrate out. See? My family, a lot of them might get upset for me saying this, but this is common among Native American people. This is part of my story. We all intermarried. I got cousins marrying cousins. 3 generations back, we share the same grandmother and grandfather. 2 more generations back from that, there it goes again. But when you get out of your tribalness, these type things happen. You no longer communicate. You don't know who's who. Somebody says, well, those are the Williams over there. That's a different set. I tell you what, you better go back 2 or 3 generations and look and see if it's a separate set. Same people. Because you've been cut off. It's very important to understand this. Go ahead, man.
What would you say
What
to
would
the
you say to the people
who are adamant
that they are from Africa?
but when they
But when they are asked where they're from,
they don't know?
I would say if that's what they want to embrace, and as the old Christian song says, you die, your soul be lost, ain't nobody fault but you. I am not going to preach because some people are not going to get it because they embrace that. That's what they want to be. That's fine. That's your perspective. That's what you should do.
Exactly.
But don't hinder me.
Right. That
I'll
part.
take the concept. Yes, everybody is in for Africa. How many thousands of years you talking about? 50? 100? 200,000 years? The word Africa is no more than about 600 years old. It came into play around the same time. America Vespucius. This is how you call America, America. And on the old map, it was called Byland. So the Roman Emperor Africanus, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, named Africa. But there's so much discussion now, that may not be the location. So I deal with history that deals with 600-700 years back. Let's just deal with that.
Wow.
There's a vote going on, the old 10,000 years and 20,000 years. No, that ain't gonna do me no good. I accept that. But in the last 500 years, or the last 600 years, or the last 700 years, I descend from America. I am home.
Let's go.
I went to Africa one time on a mission with the Army Corps of Engineers. I was working on a telehealth project. We stopped in Singapore. We was traveling to Singapore because we had to go to Asia. I'm sitting in the lobby. And I walked up, and this African said to me, "Cotton picker maybe, African absolutely not."
Damn.
Did you hear what I just said?
Damn.
Cotton picker maybe, African absolutely not.
Absolutely.
They know their people
Absolutely.
like I know my people.
Absolutely not, man. I just saying.
January 23rd, 2014, African American and African Radio. We're joined by Chief Langley from the UG tribe. Chief, earlier we talked about the Racial Integrity Act.
Damn.
Could you talk to the audience about what the Racial Integrity
Absolutely. He said absolutely not, man.
how it applies to us?
He said cotton
The Racial
picker,
Integrity
maybe.
Act of 1924. I have some friends that are from Virginia.
Keisha.
Oh, they can explain that more beautifully than I can because they lived it.
What up,
But
Keisha?
this is what I'm going to tell you is according to what I've read, I've discussed with my colleague, Dr. Flecker, decided to reclassify people in Virginia who was native to say that there are no more Indians in the state of Virginia. So he classified them as colored or Negro and wrote them out of existence. Now, the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 brings about and expresses the one drop blood rule.
Wow.
You got to understand this. That's why your mother could be native or your father could be native and one parent's black, you're black. You can have your great grandfather an African and everybody else was 6th generation up as native, which you done married a complete African out. In that many generations, you are still considered black. But remember, black is a color, not a race. White, on the other hand, native and white will equal native or white. Oklahoma passed a law, Supreme Court law, many years ago. Probably about 100 years ago, that all Indians are white. The law benefited them. The Dawes Road benefited them. And you have to be very careful with the Dawes Road.
Right.
Because those names on the Dawes Road are common and may not apply to you. There are too many groups going around pushing this and people are getting played. And I'm telling you from my own experience, the Dawes does not apply to you unless you know your family was in Oklahoma and they came back. You really don't need it.
Wow.
You really don't.
Yeah.
What you need to do is understand your history. There are tribes out there that are in existence that don't even use the Dawes Road because it don't apply to them. What you need to understand is the racial reclassification code in your colonial state that has reclassified you. Get yourself in the mood of start studying Native American law within that state and say, hey, no, my people were reclassified. This is who I am and I can prove it. And when you go back and look at the congressional law and look at the census, you'll understand it. Most folks go online and deal with Ancestry.com because the federal census every 10 years. I like to use something when I assist people called Family Search, because Family Search deals with a 5-year census and a 2-year census. And those 5-year census is state. 2-year census is your county. People moving in and out. You will find your people a lot better. From what I have seen with Family Search.
Family Search.
Because it's going to deal with short timelines and going to deal with the little local courthouses, not the federal. A lot can happen in 10 years. People move around a lot. People may have changed their name. And be careful with that on the census too. Because your ancestors' name might be spelled one way and you're looking at it a different way, or the last name might be first and the first name is last. They're the same people. I have seen this hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. So you can't overlook that.
Wow.
Your grandparents, your ancestors have given you a roadmap. When they say Indian, then folks say, I don't want to use the word Indian, that is indigenous. I'm going to take it with me all the way to the bank. Because that's how I identify my people. My people had to convert back from color to Negro to back to Yuchi. In today's time, those that are not tribal, they have to convert back from African American to color to Negro to Yuchi. So that's who we are.
9910 area code calling caller. Did you have a question?
No, I didn't. I was just calling. I thought it was just a listen-in.
Okay. Chief, you sent me a email last week about in North Carolina, where this county, Franklin County, North Carolina, burned some records, some 160-year-old documents. Intentionally, they destroyed these records. Why would a county do that?
Opening up Pandora box, if I can use that phrase, because those documents will show who these major landowners are and who are the heirs. And it would have brought about a serious rut for the state.
What? Let's go.
In
What?
regards to heirs reclaiming their property. They didn't want to deal with that. And they have bankrupt North Carolina. So why would they bury it? You got 160-year-old documentation. You know how many genealogy brick walls that would have prevented, brought about solutions, but they choose to burn them.
Well, Chief, the question I have is, with us claiming that we're Africans, with us claiming that we're Moors, with us claiming that we're Hebrew Israelite, with us claiming that we're Muslim, doesn't those claims that we make on all these other nations around the world, doesn't that make what is ours here, doesn't that nullify that?
I'm going to take one of those that you use, and I'm going to deal with it, and that is the Moor. And the reason I'm going to address the Moors is from a South Carolina congressional perspective in relationship that South Carolina had with Morocco.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to bash these guys, but I'm going to give you South Carolina perspective.
Let's go.
If they're claiming sovereignty in the United States, they don't have it because they're not indigenous to this area. You're indigenous to Africa and Morocco, for one.
Damn.
Because every year, the Sultan of Morocco, either the Prince of Morocco, either he comes or an agent of his comes to South Carolina in a ceremonial and inspect the South Carolina National Guard. In the 1700s, the Negroes who were free, South Carolina passed the Sundry Act to label those Moors as white. So they're white under census. But what a lot of people are not understanding, the Moors at that time was a society.
Okay.
A society like the Freemasons.
Oh. Okay.
Be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Masonic stuff comes from the Moors. But that's
Oh.
another conversation to have.
Oh. Really?
They're
Oh.
not sovereign.
Oh shit.
Not here. Then why are they constantly going to jail?
Oh.
Morocco doesn't recognize them. What
Uh-oh.
those cats need to do is go stop reading some of these books and go look into the colonial laws that identify who the Moors are in South Carolina.
Now, why is
So
South
that's what
Carolina,
Go ahead.
Chief, why is South Carolina so important to what you're talking about? What makes South Carolina the leading?
Because Carolinas were colonized by the Moors in the early days.
Are we listening to Chief Langley?
That's another big part of history. Study the Spanish Moors, the Moors' conquest of North America. Read that
It's Chief Langley.
and go to South Carolina and look at the Moors from the congressional record. Look at the state papers on the Moors.
Hold on, I got you.
That's what
No problem. Look.
a lot of the Moors, especially the Spanish Moors, invaded this continent with Columbus and also De Soto. De Soto had Spanish Africans with him on his Native American raids.
No problem.
Go read the book of Chester Menendez. You think it's Spanish, but if you go and read it, you will find out he was a Spanish African. He was a Moor. I'm not friends with the Moors from that perspective. I know their history.
Wow.
You came in raping and enslaving Native American people in South Carolina. It's in the congressional records. They need to check their history on that. Well, I ain't never read it. Well, go read South Carolina congressional record. It's a reason why, a very good reason why, South Carolina decided to classify Negroes who were slave owners as Moors and give them the status of being white. It is public information. You have a lot of these cats take information and then put their own spin on it. That's very dangerous.
Right.
That's why I don't like reading a lot of books from a lot of authors, because you got to understand, is he pro this or is he pro that? Because he's going to write it in a biased perspective.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Those cats have no sovereignty here in America. Not in South Carolina, unless they come from Morocco. Because that's who granted South Carolina their first charter. Morocco.
Wow.
It's public information. You will do your... Go ahead.
Chief, could you talk to us about the treaties?
There's a treaty of 1866.
1866 treaty.
Now,
Let's go.
the Treaty of 1866 talks about Negroes. Now, what I want everyone to understand,
Okay.
in 1866, that was after the Indian removal, and the removal was between 1832 and 1836.
Okay.
So the 1866 treaty, which deals with the 5 civilized tribes
Okay.
and the freemen.
Uh-huh.
But check this out.
I'm
It
checking.
was an African Creek Chief Kowtow
Mm.
had initiated this treaty for the Creeks.
Mm.
A month ago, I had dinner in California with his ninth generation grandson, Perryman.
Okay.
Like Perryman kept his history, I have my history. We had a meeting up the creek in the UT in California. It was a wonderful 2 hours. That doesn't apply unless you know your family was in Oklahoma and they came back.
Mm.
So having to jump on that wagon and say the 1866 treaty applied to me and you haven't been tribal. Well, if you were tribal and came back, yes, you need to be looking at the Freedmen Bureau
Okay.
of those 13 colonies, of those southern states
Mm.
that deals with that 40 acres and a mule that was lost.
Oh.
I mean, to deal with the defranchised people. Who are these defranchised people?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the people who was reclassified? Who are the refugees?
Mm.
Because if you read the Freeman Rule, it talks about the refugees, the free men, and abandoned land. Well, who are the refugees? The Native Americans? And the Africans? That are under Negro? That come from separate plantations? Unless they're enslaved with these Native American tribes, and at that point, the Africans and the natives were together. But in South Carolina, it is documented fact that Native Americans and Africans, not all were on the same plantation. If you look at the timeline,
Okay.
so you know you got a mixture of people who are different.
Mm.
It's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Check the record. I'm not going to give you what a historian gives you. I'm going to give you where the historian gets his information.
Mm.
Go to the congressional records.
Mm.
Leave that treaty alone, because what you're going to do, you're really going to embarrass yourself. Like a lot of people I know, well, my grandmother shows up on the Dawes Roll. Were your grandmother in Oklahoma? No. Well, you better search the Dawes and see where these events were taking place at the time, because that may be a common name, and most time it is. But people don't realize when many people from the South migrated to Oklahoma, when they got to Oklahoma, they named the places in Oklahoma the same names of the places in Georgia and Alabama. My grandmother that raised me from 3 days old, born 1912 in Stillwell, Georgia, Ruby Lee Langley. There's a Ruby Lee Langley in Stillwell, Oklahoma, born 1912. Wow. I'm going to tell you two things happened. Either there's some identity fraud going on,
Sound like
or there's
identity
another
theft.
Ruby Langley out there in Oklahoma.
Sound like
But since
identity
I'm not
theft.
using the Dawes Roll for any CIA benefit, I'm going to leave it alone, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to deal with the racial reclassification.
Okay.
Or you reclassified my people, disenfranchised them,
Mm-hmm.
placed them in Native American slavery,
Mm-hmm.
called them Negro, and they are not. I'm going to approach that from a South Carolina perspective and deal with them on a state issue. My folks are reclassified. We have a tribe. We had one from day one. A lot of people don't realize, okay? Well, Langley, where did you have your tribe? Our tribe was here. Where do you have your services? In the church. Because when South Carolina and Georgia and many other southern states decided that there were no more Indian people in the state, and they called them colored. These tribes, these clans had
I know
their
that's right,
meetings
Ann.
in the churches.
What up, Ann? What it do?
So a chief became a deacon or officer in the church.
That's real
Sometimes
talk,
the
though.
preacher, but most times the medicine man became the preacher. See, something a lot of people miss, and that is when you used to see your granduncle or your grandfather or great put on that little church hat and stick that little
Right,
feather in the
right,
side,
right.
that was a sign.
Uh-huh.
That was his chief hat.
Uh-huh.
That's a part of history that's overlooked, and many of y'all in the black community can relate to seeing that.
Mm-hmm. I know I seen it.
Because that's what my ancestors did. Daddy always this is my chief hat. Why is he wearing the feather? Symbolic.
Right.
This is common, but folks don't know the history.
Chief, you
You're
talked
trying
about
to
earlier.
earlier.
You were talking earlier about the AME Church.
Could
you let the-
oh,
Could you let the audience in on that, please?
oh yeah, we can go dig in that one. That's my baby. Oh man. Oh yeah. There was a church in Scriven County, Georgia, Asbury, named after Francis Asbury. Francis Asbury was a disciple of John Wesley. John Wesley brought Methodism to Georgia and to the United States. Francis Asbury would ride through Indian country, converting Native Americans to Christianity. As a result of that, we have the Colored Methodist Church. But a lot of people don't realize the Colored Methodist Church was the Indian church. Then you had the White Methodist Church. Then you had the African Church. So when South Carolina and Georgia decided there's no more Indians in the state, the Indians had to make a choice.
You already
Either
know.
they were going to consolidate with the White Methodists or consolidate
You
with the
already
African
know.
Methodists. So a lot of the natives identified with the Free African and joined the African Methodist Church. So Asbury AME Church in Savannah, Georgia, that my family has been going to since the beginning of time because my ancestors helped establish that church. And it became from Asbury Colored Church to Asbury AME Church. Now, Richard Allen in Philadelphia, in Delaware, Maryland, is credited to starting the AME Church. But what folks need to understand, and I ain't taking that from Richard Allen, he was a disciple of Francis Asbury that gave them the Episcopal charter. But Richard Allen, according to his diary, he never traveled south
Damn.
because he feared
Damn.
he would be put in slavery. But according to documents that I've read, even his mother was Native American. Don't quote me on it. That's what I've read. So a lot of the traditions, I give you a tradition. Homecoming, Harvest Day, that's Green Corn Festival. If you go to Asbury, you'll see folks doing the Holy Ghost dance, and look at some of the tribes in Oklahoma, you would think they're doing the Ghost dance. Why is that? Because there are Native American people in Asbury that brought those traditions inside of the church. And when we couldn't practice it outwardly, they were practiced inside of the church.
Right.
So the church became an institution to keep the tribe alive and going.
That's real talk.
That is a fact. Anybody else tell you otherwise, They don't know
That's
the
why they
history,
came
or
with
they
the-
trying
with the
to
one drop
disregard
rule.
it. But they cannot tell me about Asbury AME Church in Savannah, Georgia.
That's why they came up with the one drop rule.
One of the things that we hear about in the community, or that's
Oh, yeah.
very relevant in the community when talking about the females, are what are called red
That
bones.
reverb is killing me.
Could you tell us about what a red bone is?
There's a tribe up in North Carolina of mixed race people. Read, there's a congressional book out on Native Americans of
I be saying the same
Native
shit.
Americans of North Carolina. Excellent book. It was written back in the 1800s. If you don't have it, I will send you the link. And it talks about the characteristics of the red bones, which were mixed race people
Red bone.
of Native, African, and white.
Mm.
They call them red bones. They are known today as a tribe called the Shurok. Some are called Lumbee.
Lumbies.
Many of the red bones were sent to Louisiana according to the domestic migration from South Carolina to Louisiana. That's where the term red bone comes from. They didn't just pick that out. That was a tribe. Well, enough of them, they decided to start calling folks red bone. You see them all the time. Me and you grew up with that. That's a red bone. Tribes that are written out of history are people who descend from slavery.
Oh, yeah, you about to bust that one up.
They may not assemble as a tribe anymore, but those descendants are here because they wrote them out of history. But as soon as people identify who they are,
Said I'm about to bust that one up. I believe it.
Area code 225. Do you have a question for the chief?
Actually, I'm just calling in, just listening in and trying to, I guess just
They
get more
calling it.
education or just learn and see what you guys are talking about. I was referred by Dr. Leonora Metwe in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I know that's right.
Okay, so what are you thinking about what you're hearing so far?
I actually just called in and I haven't heard anything, so I've only been on for not even a minute, just 40-something seconds.
Any other callers are waiting on hold? Did anybody have any questions of what you heard about so far?
So on the line, Carrie. Tennille.
Tennille, did you have any questions?
not at this time.
Okay, Chief, what information do you see at this time that is viable that the African American community knows at this time?
This is
From all four courts to search their families.
there you go.
How would they go about that?
First of all,
William Bell. This is a talk
I would say-
with Chief Langley.
go to your state archive
Hold up.
and
There you
start
go.
studying the congressional laws which govern race of that state in colonial times. South
Mhm.
Carolina has
Did you get
the
it? You
Negro
seen it?
law. Virginia has the Racial Integrity Law, Racial Integrity Act. I am quite sure other states did exactly the same thing and
Oh,
may
yeah, no
have
problem.
patterned their law and their statute law after Virginia or South Carolina. But there's a fascinating thing about Virginia that's rarely told that I found in the Virginia to the southern states migration.
Oh yeah, I got some
Virginia
shit.
had, in 1690, they expelled 60,000 free African. Those 3 Africans in Virginia went south. Many of them ended up in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Mainly the Carolinas, because it is known the Carolinas was colonized by the Moors. And at that time, there were more black free slave owners in the Carolinas than the Virginians. Now, so Chief, where do you get this information from? Go search the timeline. The timelines of colonial migrations. If you don't have it, get with the caller. I will give it to him and he will email it to you.
We're here with Chief Langley from the Yuchi tribe on the Savannah River. Chief, talk to us about the male warrior. What is the purpose of the male warrior and how could he be utilized and how could he be a force to reckon with in America today?
Learn his history. Learn the knowledge itself. Whether he be African or whether he be Indian, learn who you are. And respect your ancestors by knowing who they were, because the name that you carry.
I said the same shit. And because some of it be dry. Some of it be dry. Dry.
Thank you.
Oh, I know it. Oh. I know. Oh, I'm trying to look for this. What's the name? This other joint. Meanwhile, I got y'all up in a place. I'm trying to find it. I know I had it on here. But I know some stuff that I be watching, and I click on. Okay. Some stuff I be watching, and I click on. It don't even go to my damn history. Like I be like, what the fuck? Like I was just watching that shit, and then it don't go, and then you have to go try to piece back to where the hell you was and shit. That should be crazy. You get to listen to some real informative shit. You be like, oh man, that shit's pretty dope. Then you accidentally click on something else and then try to go back and you can't find that shit. Yeah, I know. That's what I say too. That shit is real weird. That shit is real weird. I be like, what the fuck? Like, wait a minute. Like, how I don't go to my damn watch videos. You know what I'm saying? Like, because some of that shit I be watching, them motherfuckers be like, shit, I don't know how the fuck this nigga found this shit. It should be like, I don't know how the fuck he found that. Shit, we gonna make sure he don't find it again though. Oh yeah, I believe it. I can't wait to see that shit. Oh, they already blocked it. Damn, that's fucked up, man. They be fucking my shit up. Cause you know I be like, shit. You know where I go for the videos. I be like, man, cause some of this shit be just ridiculous, man. Oh, okay. That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, yeah, I'm trying to find this damn video. I know I didn't go past it. Hmm. His shit pretty interesting, I guess. I guess I can play. I can play Medicine Man shit. I really wanted to play the what's the name, but I think this shit was in. This worth another look at. Just to see what you think about this. This was pretty interesting, I think. He be having the music and shit like you. That nigga be jamming like you. I be like, damn, man, this remind me of somebody else, man. Hold on, I gotta grab this other thing. Yeah, the Medicine Man be jamming though. That's what's up. Yeah, he make his own beats. He make his own beats. I gotta go to his website. Yeah, that shit remind me of your videos though. Straight up. I be like yeah, he got a website. It should be bumping. I'm trying to get this shit to sit in here right. Hold up. Oh, goddamn quarters and shit. There we go. There we go. I know, right? I know. It be jamming. When I play it back, I be like, damn, that shit loud as a motherfucker. Yeah, I like this speaker, this stereo system in this car. It should be crispy. And I ain't even put no bang in the trunk yet. but I'm going to though. You know I gotta put some beat back there. Oh yeah, and be having them video. Let's play for them. But it's funny how they be having all these artifacts and shit. He gonna get into some shit every minute. He do a bunch of old books and shit like that. I know. They sure do. As a matter of fact, they just burnt down the museum and they just burnt the museum down in South America with the oldest bones that was found in South America, which is Luzia. They burnt that motherfucker down because they said she was a Negroid. They burned down a lot of that. That shit was crazy. But yeah, they burned that motherfucker down. That shit was like maybe like a week or two ago. Hell yeah. Burnt that motherfucker down. A lot of people didn't hear about it. That's the crazy part. They kept that shit like hush hush, like that's how I was like, what the fuck? Cause it's a dude, Corey Mayo. He do a lot of African Americans ain't African shit on his channel. But he was talking about it. He's like, yeah, the same museum that they held Luzia in supposedly burnt down. Like, nigga, how does a museum burn down? Unless that shit is intentional. It ain't like you can be smoking in the museum and flick a cigarette butt and fucking burn the bitch down. You know what I'm saying? Hell yeah. Exactly. When that information started getting out. Hell yeah. Real talk. Real talk. Man, I found that shit real suspect. I'm like, really? Because they did a reconstruction of Luzia. And Luzia was they call her a Negroid phenotype. She wasn't a Mongoloid or none of that other shit. That shit's funny. It ain't funny, but oh yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly what they do. They be like, oh, wait a minute. This information getting too popular. And see, oh boy, he from South America. Like he lived in North America, but he moved back to South America. And fucking he was putting out that information on that shit. And then them niggas burnt that bitch down. I said, hell no. Yeah, that shit's real suspect though to me. Like that shit don't make no sense. They don't want to talk about them pyramids down there. They don't want to talk about the pyramids that's older than the ones in fucking Africa. They get mad when you mention them. When you say, "Oh, they got pyramids in South America that's older than Africa," they be like, "Them not pyramids." Like, nigga, yes, they are. Hell yeah.
Anáhuac. 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 Anáhuac.
My bad, y'all. That's facts, man. That's facts. As a matter of fact, I think in this video he was showing where them niggas had bulldozed one of the old pyramids in Mexico. They was using the fucking material for land filler for the roads and shit. And they gonna say it was an accident. That's bullshit, bro. They knew that shit was there. Yeah, they gonna say that it was an accident. I'm like, nigga, that wasn't no motherfucking accident. You seen that big ass pyramid right there, and y'all niggas just don't say, "Oh, ain't nobody looking. Ain't nobody looking. Let's go on out here." Oh yeah. Hold on, I want to get to the. Hold on, let's get to the good part. But he's showing a lot of pictures of it. These are our pyramids that's in South America. Like, they got like big ass complexes of pyramids. You know, that's the one. What's that? Teotihuacan? Yeah, that's the complex in Teotihuacan. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's the one, that the big one in Teotihuacan. Yeah, that motherfucker is ginormous. They got the sun one, and then the moon pyramid and shit. Yeah, that shit is, man. And then they got all these brown folks on these walls and shit. Like, this shit's crazy, man. And you can't tell me that they had white paint on the background. So if these people was like light skinned and shit like that, they could have depicted them people like that. This shit crazy, man. That shit is the craziest to me. They show all these people with dreads and shit. Like, but he went in on this video. Let me fast forward a little bit. I really want you to hear this part.
All praises to the Most High, the creative creators, the framer and the shaper of all. I've had time over this winter break to do a little research and catch up on some things, and got a few videos that I've watched and some information that I share in a little bit I want to touch on. But first, let me discuss something that we don't apply a lot, and that's common sense.
Common sense.
I want you to go ahead and just really look at what the definition of it is. Of course, we all know that it means good sense and sound judgment and practical matters, of course. But what I want to emphasize is the shrewdness, wisdom, and insight. These are inherent qualities that a lot of us don't tap into. And it's very easy for us to overanalyze or overthink a lot of situations, when a lot of times all you have to use is common sense. When I looked up the definition of common sense, I noticed there was also a title of a pamphlet written by Thomas Paine in 1775. It was a pamphlet that was advocating independence.
This is the Medicine Man channel, though.
13 colonies, written in a clear, persuasive prose. Paine marshaled moral and political arguments to encourage common people in the colonies to fight for egalitarian government. Now, peep the irony. Let's see. Egalitarian government. Definition of egalitarianism: a belief in human equality, especially with respect to social, political, and economic affairs. A social philosophy advocating the removal of inequalities among people. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
So this was a pamphlet that was put out by Thomas Paine.
Yep, that's the Medicine Man.
Sense, there was equality among the people, trying to remove the inequalities. I wonder how would that fare in today's society. Anyway, I digress. Let me go ahead and go to this right here. Check this out. These are Americans. It says here the original melanated civilizations of Mexico, or should we say Anahuac, the original name of the land. These were Anahuacans, or the original Anahuacans, prior to it becoming Mexico. And it became Mexico when the tribe of the Mexicas from Mongolia invaded territory and conquered and claimed the land and named it after themselves. And today it's called Mexico, after the Mexicans, who were a Mongol tribe, one of 7 that came here in the 13th century.
Yeah, the mics definitely make a difference, though.
Anahuac. This is the name of what we call Mexico today.
Anahuac.
Let's take a look at what Anahuac is.
Let's go.
So I looked up Anahuac, and I'm looking at the root. And I see Anaha, which is the root. You can see the origin being Sanskrit. So we know that it's Sanskrit or Hindu is the origin. Now let's see if we can find some meaning for it. I'll look it up here in the Sanskrit dictionary. And so according to the Sanskrit dictionary of Hindu, it originally meant breathing freely healthy, and well. So the people of this land, or by definition, were breathing freely, healthy, and well. Now, as you can see, Anaha, when it's translated into English, is on. So what I want people to understand is that our ancestors, when they spoke their languages, there was a tonal language. They spoke in tones. So Anaha, they put emphasis, enunciation on
That's facts,
words.
man.
So when
That's
you
facts.
translated it to English, it's just on. So you Anaha in English is on. You see how much is lost? This is why I say that this English language is like a curse, it's a spell. It's stripped of a lot of the original meanings and a lot of the original tones of the languages. It's stripped it away. So now you have on, which originally was Anaha. And interesting, I looked at when from the origin of Hindu, it also translates from Mare. And when I looked up these people, the Mare people, or the Maori people, I noticed that they are considered an indigenous Polynesian people of New Zealand. And they were originated with settlers from eastern Polynesia who arrived in New Zealand in several waves of canoe voyages sometime between 1250 and 1300. Now, the irony of this, or should I say connecting the dots or following the breadcrumbs, is same time, same period, same era, the Mongol tribes started invading the Americas, right at the same time. And so I'm one of those people, I like to look at people. I'm a people watcher. I've been studying faces and phenotypes for years. And when you look at images of the Maori people, you can see that they have similarities, a lot of similarities to Siberian people. There's the Maori people. These are Siberian people. So it's not a coincidence that 7 tribes
Yeah,
of these people
I know, man.
from this region invaded the Americas in the 13th century. And it just so happened at the same time, the Maori people from Polynesia, or so they say were indigenous to Polynesia, they started coming in several waves of canoe voyages between the same time. Okay, interesting. So hold that thought. So I wanted to go ahead. Well, we know that now that Anaha is sacred, is breathing freely and well. All right. So Anaha is breathing freely and well. Let's look at the suffix. Okay, well, we know that AC
Right,
is a
right,
suffix is pertaining to or similar to. Okay, so
I
keep that
said
in mind.
that shit too.
Pertaining to and similar to. And when we look at, let's see what they say about
Oh yeah.
wok. It says that it is dry and withered. So wok means dried and withered. So Anaha and wok together means breathing freely, healthy and well, and dried and withered location, which made me stop thinking. So I'm like, let me look up Mexico. And lo and behold, when I did, I realized that they said that the Rio Grande is drying up. So I looked at this little video for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. I look at the terrain. I'm like, wow, it is drying up. I'm like, look at how, just desolate certain areas are. So, which kind of puts it all together. I'm like, okay, well, now I understand that they were living freely and well, but they were living in a land that was drying up. Kind of give you some, I guess, some insight and some information on topography of the location. But you got the suffix wak, which means dried and withered. You put it with anaha, which in sacred means breathing freely, healthy, and well. So you put two and two together. When you do,
Yeah.
begin to get
Oh
an
yeah.
idea of patience.
Yeah. That's
Right
why
now, I
I
want to go
fuck
ahead and
with
touch on something
medicine, man.
that I had heard over the break, actually.
He talking
I
a
want
lot
to give
about
a big shout out to
bunch
Brother
of
Lex Will, Brother Otis, and Brother Vincent. Hey, you guys, I've been listening and I've been watching. And I also want to give a big shout out to Brother UB News. Geography and topography of some of these events. I want to show you something in the book of Yahshua. But first, let me go ahead and set it up by letting you guys know. We'll go to chapter 16 with the allotment, that were given to the tribes that were east of the springs of Jericho.
I almost fell asleep on this part, but
there through the desert into the hill.
I say he going somewhere.
So
almost
go ahead and scroll down chapter 16, and I want to go down. Maybe let's start in verse 8, where it says, the border went out from Tapua westward unto the river Kanah, and goes out thereof, where at the sea, this is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Ephraim by their families. And the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh. All the cities with their villages. And they drove not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelled among the Ephraimites until this day and served under tribute.
almost.
Let's look at that again.
I know what you meant.
It says that when they came in, they drove not out the Canaanites that dwelled in Gezer, but that the Canaanites dwelled among the Ephraimites until this day and served under tribute. So that made me think, like, Ephraimites, who are they? So I went to look up the tribe of Ephraim, and so
He going to pictures right now.
And what struck me was, well, wait a minute. These are the Ephraimites? Or are these Ephraimites? Is that an Ephraimite?
Right.
Or
Yeah, it is.
are these Ephraimites? Somebody is playing imposter, and somebody basically got a hidden identity. Is this guy the Ephraimite? Or are these guys Ephraimites? Well, I can tell you this. We know where these guys come from. And as you see that, basically in Russia is the post states. So we know that these guys are part of basically the tribes that were of the Alemanni, Gog and Magog. So go back.
I don't know what that is.
I'm gonna go forward in chapter 17. Scroll down. There's something else that caught my eye. I mean, I would like to read it all, but I don't want to pick it up. With these names, these locations, I'm coming to understanding that a lot of these names are actually names of people who have settled in certain areas, and these became those lands. So when you can decipher a name, pretty much gives you an origin, and it kind of ties you to that land. And this is what we're trying to do. So I want to go and let's start here right around, I guess, on verse 12, where it said in chapter 17, Joshua verse 12. It says, yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Canaanites would dwell in their land. Yet it came to pass, when the children of Israel were waxing strong, that they put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not utterly drive them out. And the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing I am a great people, for as much as the Lord hath blessed me hereto? And Joshua answered them, if thou be a great people, then get thee up the wood country and cut down for thyself there in the land of the Perizzites and the giants, if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. So we understanding that where they are right now is not a large location for the accommodation. And Joshua was like, well, if you are a great people, then go on up there in that wood country where them giants live at and clear out their land for yourself. Go ahead and create you some more space. Now, to tie this all together to what they're dealing with, we can go back up to verse 5. This is something that Brother Lex had touched on one of his lessons. It said and there fell 10 portions to Manasseh beside the land of Gilead and Bashan,
I don't know what none
which
of this
were
means.
on the other side of Jordan. Now, this is something that Brother Lex had touched on. Bashan, Lysor, first mentioned in Genesis 14:5, where it said that and his confederates smote the Rephaim and Ashtaroth, where King Og, the king of Bashan, had his residence. So we know that this is around the same area where Og, the king of Bashan, had residence. Okay. So let me scroll to the next chapter right quick, and we want to touch on something that really caught my eye. I just started Joshua 18, and the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not received their inheritance. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, how long are ye slack to go to possess the land, which the Lord God of your fathers hath given you? Give out from among you 3 men for each tribe, and I will send them, and they shall rise and go through the land and describe it according to the inheritance of them. And they shall come again to me, and they shall divide it into 7 parts. So, as you can see, they were now allotting the lands to the tribes that didn't have received their inheritance yet. And so,
I know, right?
And doing so, they divided up in 7 parts. But what struck me was 7 tribes. I'm like, okay, 7 tribes in the book. Then I'm like, okay, 7 tribes of the Mongols came up and conquered our land. I'm like, coincidence? Okay.
Right.
Just wanted to touch on that and bring that out. And I mean, there was another part that I wanted to bring out. I believe it's in the next chapter. Hold on. Is it in here? Yeah, it's in the next chapter. So let me scroll forward to chapter 19, where he's talking about Simeon. So as you can see, they're breaking it up now. Keep in mind now, all of these names, we can break down to the roots. We can get an origin, and we can get the land. And what struck me out as I was reading this, it broke down to this. I'll just scroll down to verse start at 16. This is the heritage of the children of Zebulun, according to their founders, these cities with their villages. And the 4th lot came out to Ishkar, for the children of Ishkar, according to their families. And the border was toward Jezreel, Kesloth, and Shinar, and Hephron, and Shinar, and Anaroth.
Anawak.
Y'all see what I'm saying? Okay. So, Ishkar, Anaroth. Let me look up Ishkar. Ishkar people. Let's look at it. Okay. First thing pops up is what? Descendants of the Gog and Magog, tribes of the Mongols that came over here. But then, lo and behold, hidden in the mix is a real descendant of Ishkar. A real descendant of Ishkar. And guess what? It's tied to what land?
Anáhuac.
Anaroth. Coincidence? No, I just went over the definition. We went over the suffix. We went over pretty much the land. Thanks to, some of the information Brother Lex shared, Brother UB News to share. Just kind of put the locale, the geography, the topography, meaning, what's been built on it, the landscaping. Then when you're reading a lot of these destinations, these locations, these names, these cities, get to the root. It's not a coincidence that Anaha, which is actually Anahuac, is tied to the tribe of Issachar. It's not a coincidence. It's common sense. Use it. It's common sense.
Yeah.
Literally. So now I want to go ahead and
They do.
fast forward right quick.
That's funny how you
got
picked that
something
up,
interesting,
too.
Out of the Anahuac or Mexican and the Mexicans.
That's
ancient
real
model.
funny how you just pulled that
That's
up
some
like bam, bam.
True spiel in
Yeah.
here. Let me see if I can find something.
They build together.
You guys are really trip you out just like it did me. I'm like, wow, this is nothing that I didn't know, but just confirmation.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I think it was
Yeah, I watched
this,
a few of
it's
his
a PDF, online
what's
PDF.
the
You can go ahead and get it. And you can read some of this truth. And you kind of piece the pieces together, just like I'm trying to do. And you can see a lot that we've not been told with research, due diligence. Us, like my grandmother always say, 2, 3 heads better than one. So when we all put our heads together, you see what happens. Okay, look, I'm reading out on page 16. It says that one possible article of export we examine as closely as opportunities would allow, namely the Indian inhabitants, that they are in every respect the right article for trade.
Oh yeah, that's what
brown
they.
skinned and capable of defending themselves, strong, healthy, and industrious.
That's what
And
they do,
creeks
man.
and mangrove swamps of Cuba, only 3 days sail off the plantations and mines that want 100,000 men to bring them into full work and swallow Aborigines, Chinese, and Negroes indifferent, meaning it don't even matter. Anything that has a dark skin and can be made to work will take those Yakutus in any quantity. Yakutus is people from Yucatan.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to check yourself. I did it too. I had to.
And pay well for them. The ones on the sugar estate were down a 9 when these sham registers are regularly made out, and that the governor has had his ounce of gold, a piece for passing them and the subordinates their respective rights, who shall get them out again or even bind them. Meaning, once you go ahead and get them out of here, you disperse them, and who gonna find them? Who gonna know? That just caught me. Boom, it just stopped me in my track like, whoa. So our question is, if these people were being enslaved, and it says right here, the people from Yucatan, and they were brown skinned, it's describing what color it was. And they basically were incapable of defending themselves, of course, against heavy weaponry. When you coming in with muskets and dogs, against arrows and bows, it's a no-brainer. But just the fact that they had pointed out how healthy and strong and industrious
Them some badass pyramids over there. For real, them
Hey,
motherfuckers.
let's get these people. We can disperse them, and who would know? So this is some interesting stuff. I just touched on that. Now, something that you guys can look into yourself. But this brings back to the points about common sense. Okay, so we see that we have people that's inhabiting the country as we speak now, looking a lot like this, and they call themselves indigenous and native to this land. And
I believe you.
when you understand
A lot
the
of it.
history behind it, when you understand,
I
who
know a
the real
lot of that
indigenous
shit's been
people were,
tore down. A
and
lot
what
of
they
it.
look like, and they even describe it. This is not me saying this. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading out of the Anahuac or Mexican and Mexicans, ancient and modern. I'm reading out of the history book. So they're telling the truth. They're saying these people were brown skinned. Saying which in today's classification will be considered black, or the better misnomer of African American. That makes sense. So probably to this point, I'm like, okay, now if these people came from Siberia, we know they came from Siberia according to the historical researchers. What are the indigenous crops of Siberia? Because I see a lot of pictures of what you would call propaganda of them basically looking like they are the cultivators of maize. Well, let's look at, let's see here. How about check out some Aztec corn? Look at the image of that. See what I'm talking about. Oh, here is a picture of
It's Aztec corn.
an Aztec with maize.
That's a real corn.
Here we go. We got a picture of the
That ain't that.
Aztecs with maize.
That ain't that GMO shit. Should look way different too.
Looking at these pictures, you would think that, oh, these people, they've been around this all their life. They know maize, they know how to grow it and cultivate it. And, oh, these are people responsible for getting all different types of variations of corn, and they done cultivated so much that bull. These people know not. They knew nothing until the 13th century about this crop.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly, and
This is what they know.
that's real shit.
These are the images of Siberia. This is what they know.
GMO.
This is what they come from. From the plains, from the steppes of Siberia. These are the crops that they knew. Corn doesn't grow here. Wheat, wheat and barley and cabbage, peas, buckwheat. these people never saw this until they came here. They never saw these variations. Let me show you this. Look, right here. As Christopher Columbus mentions corn in his journal, saying it was well tasted, baked and dried, and made into flour. He later takes corn back with him to Spain, where it is well spread throughout Europe. So that lets you know right there that the Europeans that came here, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, or should I say the tribes of the Suave and the Visigoths that came here, they knew nothing about no corn.
Right.
So
I'm saying.
we got, where's she?
I be saying.
You at, beautiful? It's yourself. Yeah, come here. Where you at? Just saw you. There you go. There she is. Look at her. Cholula style female figure representing the corn goddess Chickamiaucotl,
Facts.
holding the sun's rays.
That's real talk.
Now, here you got the Chikamika tribe from Mongolia. They don't know nothing about this. These are the people who cultivated this corn. These are the people who made, these different variations of corn. These are the people who came, assimilated, and then usurped and took over. And now, basically, they assume it as if they are the people of the land when we know that they're not. According to their DNA, he even their DNA traces them back to their land of origin, which is Siberia, the steppes of the Caucasus. So, when you know these facts and you know that they came over here in ships like this, 10 times the size of the ones that Columbus and his crews came over in. This is what they were coming over here in. And you can see basically who these people are and where they come from. Just by looking at the people today that are basically, should I say, standing in, or the proxy that they have. The proxy. So I just wanted to touch on that so you guys can understand that, it's a lot of things in history that's not been told. There's a lot of history that's been hidden, a lot of history that's been concealed because they don't want us to know that what they've been telling us is a lie.
Hold on.
I mean, once you realize that a lot of what's going on and the origins of it, and then you get down to the bottom of it, you see all what's been done and all what's being done continuously to keep it, status quo. Okay. And
I think that's at the Anunnaki.
you also got to take into account and understand that a lot of our ancestors also took on some of their rituals and some of the things, their cultures that they brought, and they took a part, was a part of that.
I don't know about that. I mean, hearing that name, hearing Anunnaki, and then hearing this name that he talking about, that sound like the same people, don't it?
So
Anaha,
another
Anunnaki.
stake in the, I guess you could say,
You know what I'm talking about?
As a people. You let another group of people come over and pretty much assimilate everything that you've done.
I had thought about that when I heard him say that name, Anaha. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, are they talking about them people? Yeah. Right. I was like, are they talking about these people? Are they calling them aliens? Are they calling them aliens because they wasn't from there and they came over there with all of that technology and shit?
Now, who else would be making black corn?
Because you think about
what I'm saying? I'm like,
they was over here
it's just common sense to me.
doing all this.
I'm like, do you honestly think that these people made black corn? Really? They made black corn.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I know that's right. Yeah.
You already know that these are
because I mean, if
crops in which they came.
if they making
what they know.
different
This is their habitation.
different corn,
Historic.
different color corns, and
What they
they got irrigation
rain-
systems and
rain-
all this
country.
stuff. I mean, that's what they could be calling them. But yeah,
So-
Anawa,
Knowing that, you know what it is.
Anawa sound like Anunnaki to
Cultural
me.
assimilation. That means that a group came over and they.
I had put that together though too,
and they
and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm just saying. You know, that's how my mind be going. I was like, Yep. That shit's funny as hell.
Cultural assimilation is a process by which a minority group or a culture comes to resemble those of a dominant group. So when they came here, of course, the ancestors, the antediluvians that were living here in the Americas, those were the dominant groups. And they basically assimilated or learned their ways, their customs and traditions, and mimicked them. And they're still doing it to this day. I want to bring out another point before I get out of here. Something that kind of it irks me. I'm sounding like my granny now. It irks me, but I want you guys to get an understanding of something, or overstanding, should I say, of something that's been going on. And I'm a type of seeker of truth and knowledge that when I find out things, I know that we are visual people. I know we're expressive people. So I try to illustrate best I can. And a lot of times I use what they call memes. Now, the knock on memes is when you having some type of debate and you use a meme, oh, you use a meme, this, that, like it's like there's no credit or there's nothing that a meme has of any substance that can, be used. And I wanted to bring that up because I want to show you the definition of what meme is, because some of y'all don't even read. I mean, if you did, you was just be quiet because you sound ignorant. And I said ignorant. Okay. So, as you can see, the original meaning of meme, an element of a cultural system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation.
Me too.
So,
I'm learning. I try to learn something every day.
And truth on a meme. It behooves you to research what's on the meme and stop trying to make fun of the facts and the truth. Y'all stuck on the humorous image, the video, basically the dumbed down version that they give you of the word. I looked at the etymology of words. And I research. And so when somebody says, oh, this is what you got on the meme, oh, that's a lie, that's bogus, or that's, okay. Well, to me, that shows your ignorance because you don't even take the time to research the information and truth that's on the meme. That's my point. So I want to just say that, share that information because
Facts,
I'm
man.
on Facebook and, I share a lot of information. I'm on, also on Instagram. I
Facts.
share a lot of pictures, a lot of information, a lot of memes. And on that note, I wanted to give a big shout out to some of the brothers, who in the struggle with me.
I heard
Yeah,
that
I'll
shit.
be.
Me too.
I give a shout out to Ab, the legend, 1000 Go Ahead, Carusium, Natural by Law, and African Americans Ain't African, because they put out a lot of memes, just like myself, with truth on them. People, if you go ahead and research what's on the meme, you will see that it's truth. This particular one right here is basically a quote from Professor Rafinescu, who in the 1800s went through North, Central, South America, and he saw eyewitness accounts. This is what he wrote, what he saw. So when you share this information on a meme, it shouldn't depreciate the value of the truth because it's on a meme. Because nowadays everybody put ignorant or some BS or some nonsense on memes, and it's laughable. Okay, well, we have to basically differentiate for fun and what's for real. So, as I said earlier, we as a
That's what's
visual
up.
people,
I already know. I know it's late.
see it is believe it.
You know my ass be up all morning. Yeah, it's almost a wrap for me too. So I'm trying to hurry up and get done. Got like three stops.
Tried to give us a visual, and so did these brothers. So I just wanted to go ahead and touch on that, bring that out, and clear that up. I get a lot of people want to argue up and down.
I am most definitely.
And don't take the time to go ahead and research the information or the facts that's
trying
on the meme to verify that. No, just because it's on the meme, it don't mean nothing. It's fake. It's okay. Those not taking the time to look into it and verify the information, it just shows the level of your intelligence. That's all. That's it. Again, like I said, a lot of this is just common sense. Start applying it. Okay, so again, I wanted to go ahead and give out some love to my subscribers. I try to share as much as I can when I can. Truth be told, I wish I could just do this full time. I just wish I could just, engulf myself into it. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm just scraping the surface. I mean,
You got a backup channel?
There's not enough time.
I gotta check that out.
Got to pay the bills, right? Okay, so, but having said that, I just wanted to let you guys know also that we got some new things coming up for the new year, 2019. We got some new projects in place. Sitting with some of my family, and we've been put our heads together, and we want to go ahead and start utilizing some of our talents. And hopefully, you guys will be receptive to it and will support us in that endeavor. You guys got ideas or whatever, simply email me at nucleusbeats@gmail.com. If you'd like to support your channel and the presentations, please do. For any artists out there that's spitting truth, hit me up, nucleusbeats@gmail.com. Go to the website, nucleusbeats.com. Check out some of the tracks. A lot of times what I do a lot of soundtracks. I do a lot of cinematic things of that nature. But pretty much I can do it all. Editing or any production, as you can see, that's something that we also do. So, I mean, we're trying to offer our services to our brothers and sisters, to the community, So if you guys are interested, we can make it happen. Again, I want to end by saying all praises to the Most High, the creator of creators, the framer in the shape of all, Heya. And I guess I will plant you guys now, and I'll dig you later. So you take it easy, Greasy, and don't slip too fast.
Your soul is barred. Resistance is useless. I will dominate.
That's the medicine man, though. Hold on, but it's something. I don't even think I'm gonna be able to find what I was looking for, though. It might be over there. I don't know. I gotta get out. So I'll let this ride for a second longer. second. I gotta get out. Hold up, baby. Hold up. Hey. I'm gonna find what I was looking for too. 1 second. Pull up over here. Excuse me, y'all. I'm looking for this. What's I know it's in here. It was earlier today.
Scientists today can tell precisely when they arrive and from where. All native peoples in South and North America belong to a racial type known as Mongoloid. They're descended from the ancient peoples of Siberia.
We've already talked about the Aztec civilization in several videos, but what we're going to focus on in this video is the Aztec Empire, which shouldn't be confused with the Aztec civilization. The civilization is referring to the broader groups of people over hundreds of years, but the Aztec Empire is a very specific entity that formed in the 100 years before Spanish colonization. What you see here is a zoomed in version of what today would be southern Mexico and right over here on the globe. And you can see,
I want y'all to listen to this shit. Let's go. This my boy, the Gullah. The Gullah culture, conservationalists.
y'all, big family. Coming to you live and direct once again from Charleston, South Carolina, aka the Holy City. You dig me? And today we're going to discuss the etymology of the Sambo, the Samoa, the Samurai, Uncle Sam, and Shem. You dig? Y'all know we like to deal with words, right, China Village? And the reason why we're going to do the word Sam today is because we feel like it's important for us to be able to identify ourselves wherever we were in history or wherever we plan to go into the future. You dig what I'm saying? So the word Sambo, what struck this conversation up with me and some of my people was the word Sambo, right? The word Sambo now and where we at in America represents a so-called mixed person, a mulatto person, a person that has so-called black and so-called white DNA. You dig? In the South, we call them people Sambos that represent mixed people, right? And then we also make the correlation to the word Shem because we know the word Sam itself is Shem. Sam is an English representation of the Hebrew word Shem, right? So if we name somebody Samuel in English, right, the Hebrew counterpart to that would be Shemael. The word Shem or the word Sam, because they're the same word, you dig? Hopefully y'all can understand that. The word Shem and the word Sam both meant name. In the Hebrew language or in the biblical aspect of it, the word Shem or the word Sam means name. And I'll make sure and put all of my references up on the screen. One of my partners tell me I need to start putting the references, but y'all know I go off the dome, I go off the top of my head, right? So now we can make the correlation that the word Sam, it means name. Something means name. The word Samuel means the name of God, right? At one point in time in history, the word Sam, the word Shem represented so-called black people, right? We know today that the word has morphed because that's what etymology represents. We know that the word has morphed to represent mixed breed people or people who have a representation of so-called black blood, right? And we also know that they made that progression kind of early on because the word Shem translates into the word semi or Semitic, right? And we know that semi also means like half or part. You know what I'm saying? It means that you got something that you are a mixed breed person. But at one point, the word Sam represented a so-called black person, right? Then we can go and make this reference to the samurai. I know it's a lot of people now starting to learn about the black samurai Yasuke, right? A lot of people starting to learn about Yasuke, the first so-called black samurai, sumo wrestler, whatever y'all got going on, right? Well, when I've been young, we also heard these stories, but we also knew that the first shogun was a so-called black person. I can't remember his name right now, and I can look for the references to put him up on the screen also. But you know that the shogun held the highest power in that land at the time. So if the shogun himself was black, it should not have been an anomaly to have Yasuke, the so-called black samurai. The word samurai has the elements of that word Shem in it also, right? Has the word Sam, and it also has the word Mu, which we know Mu represents the so-called black indigenous people also. Mu was a mythological land, you dig? So now we got the word Sam and we got Mu, right? Sam means name or represents a so-called black person. Mu represents that land, right? And then we got Ra, which is like lightning, you dig? And we know for some reason, well, we know the reason, right, John? We can get into that later, but for some reason, black people, so-called black people, are always represented with lightning powers, or represented by electricity. You dig what I'm saying? If you look at your comic, I don't know if y'all like comic books and stuff like that, but if you look at these comic characters, they seem to always represent so-called black people with electrical type of powers, okay?
So thus the term samurai in itself at one point represented a so-called black person. When we were young, I don't know how things are now, but when we were young, we were taught that a person couldn't be a samurai unless they had so-called black blood. So Yosuke, the black samurai, should not have been an anomaly, especially when we can show y'all the fact that the first shogun in this area was black. The shogun is the one who hired all of these samurais, right? So if we can prove that, then we can prove that having a so-called black person in that society was not an anomaly. It probably became a rarity after the Mongol tribes from the north, the Scythians and the steppe people, invaded and replaced the so-called black people of those Asian lands. But we know that indigenous Asian is a so-called black person. So black people over there were not an anomaly. It's only an anomaly nowadays, just like in America. Them people have been pushed out and overrun and ran to the outskirts now, the edges of their communities, just like in America, just like Egypt and every place else. Okay? So keep in your mind that that word samurai in itself has some type of representation with so-called black folk, right? All right, then we can go and like we talked about earlier, we did with these words, we know that the word represents a mixed person right now, right? Well, then let's take a trip a little bit east from Japan and from Asia to Samoa, right? Look at that word Samoa, right? Sam-oa, right? So the word Samoa in itself represents, is very similar to the word Sambo. I know when you look at their etymology of the word Samoa, it translates into the place of Mo, right? I would change that into the name of Mo because we know that Sam means name, right? You dig? We know that when we speak in these languages, we speaking them from, when we speak in the names of these places, we speaking them from
That's
the
what's up,
European
Juan.
ID, right? So the word Samoa in itself represents the so-called mixed person, right? We know that Sam used to represent a so-called black person, but today it represents a semi-person. You dig? A person who was half, right? So nowadays, if you look at the people in Samoa, they mostly Polynesian, which I believe that I know the indigenous Polynesians are so-called black people. So they mostly the indigenous Polynesian mixed in with the Western Europeans, right? Because we know the Western Europeans invaded those islands, took over those places. And they also have part of the modern Mongol DNA stock because we know that the Mongols also invaded those islands early on, probably before the Europeans. The Mongols and the Europeans, the same people. You dig? But we're gonna have to get into that when we get into the origin of the Caucasian and the Asian. They're the same people. So they're saying they tactics and their lifestyles and how they handle things were, especially war-wise, were very, very similar. Scythia was on both sides. So that's another thing that we had to show you right quick is that Samoa nowadays represents a mixed breed people because that's a part of the process of us being replaced. But at one point in time, the island was all so-called black people, Samoa, right? You dig? So now let's go ahead and let's do Uncle Sam right quick, right? Because I think I got to read something. Uncle Sam is a derivative of a so-called black person also, right? Because that's psychologically telling you that you from this land, that this land was a black land. When you hear the word Uncle Sam, subliminally, them boy letting you know that this is a so-called black land because the word Sam, as we know, represented a so-called black person, especially at the time when the United States became known as Uncle Sam. So-called black people in the South are known as Sammies or Sambos, all up until about World War II, World War I maybe, when the word became derogatory, when they stopped using the term Fasi. But between 1813 and 1814, the word Sam simply meant uncle in the black community. You dig what I'm saying? So I guess it was like a slang term for us saying uncle. You dig? So the word uncle and Sam are the same word, because then we see the creation of the word Uncle Sam was created. The creation of the nickname Uncle Sam as a representation of the United States came about at the same time that it was documented that this word Sam meant uncle in the so-called black community. So the word uncle and the word Sam at that point in time meant the exact same thing. Now I know it also has the double meaning because the initials in the United States are US, Uncle Sam. But prior to Uncle Sam, they would call it brother something. You dig? I can't remember. Like I said, I'll try to put the references up on the screen. But before the United States was known as Uncle Sam, it was known as something else, brother something, right? So now that just, like I said, for me, psychically and, you know what I'm saying, subliminally, is telling us that this place was known as the land of the brothers, the land of the Sams, the land of the Sams, you dig? And that's why it's called Uncle Sam, the etymology of that terminology. I know that might sound a little bit far-fetched, but we deal with words and we deal with how these words progress. Now, nowadays, the point where we are now, since the word became derogatory for so-called black people in the early 1900s, the term was left to represent people with black blood, the mixed breed people. And in the South, they became known as Sambos, right? But prior to civil rights, prior to the mid-1900s, the term didn't necessarily represent a mixed person. It represented a so-called black person. And just so y'all know, the word ham and the word shem, the same word also. Both of them words represent so-called black people. The word ham and the word shem is the same word. I know that sounds a little bit funny too, but go ahead and do your research and dig a little bit deeper. I ain't saying that we write on everything, but we did a lot of research on these subjects. But y'all let me know what y'all feel in the comments down below about the etymology of Sam, Sambo, the samurai. You dig what I'm saying? Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Support the Gullah Culture Conservationists. Peace out till next time, big homies.
The last point I'm going to make on this is that Africans and Negroes are two different peoples. Race and skin color are really a red herring. Okay, it's a kind of divisive lie that has been put about, and I'm going to go into this a bit more in detail. Yeah, to separate people by perceived race is a distraction. Okay. So we all think that all black people are the same, basically, but they're not. Africans and Negroes are different. They have a different skeletal structure, different skull shape. And one interesting thing is African people, real Africans, cannot grow hair like Negroes can. So African men cannot grow beards. All right? African women cannot grow afros. Right? So it's a very powerful thing. If you see real African women, you'll see that they've always got very, very short hair because literally they can't grow it. Very quickly, Adam was not the very first man. The Bible is only covering a period of time which is about 7,000 years, the last 7,000 years of Earth's history. It doesn't cover before that period. There were people before that period, and the first verses of the Bible actually tell you that if you read it properly and you read it with the translating the Paleo-Hebrew, some of the words aren't translated quite correctly, and gives you the impression that it's all happening contemporaneously, but it's not. It's actually there's like a gap period in between the first two verses. So the biblical Israelites were black. It says that Ham, this is according to the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, Ham was the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. They're separate people. But the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, Canaanites. So it's telling you there that, again, the Egyptians and what became the Africans were black people. So going through the Bible, I'm not going to go through all of these, but yeah, Joseph in the Bible was so much like an Egyptian that his own brothers didn't recognize him. So obviously he looked like an Egyptian, so the Israelites were black people. Moses was also an Israelite, but he was raised under the nose of Pharaoh, and so he'd kind of stand out if he was a white guy. And he was also mistaken as an Egyptian by the daughters of the priests of Midian. And also Moses' sister, Miriam, was turned white as a punishment. So there's a lot more biblical references that tell you that the Israelites were actually black people. But yeah, you can go through it in the Bible. And throughout the what's called the Renaissance period, all of the artwork was replaced throughout Europe. But because Russia, well, it was a kind of insular society at that time, Renaissance didn't get to Russia. So you can go online and search for Russian icons, and you'll find that everybody who was portrayed in the Bible were portrayed black. And yeah, after Renaissance, all that artwork was destroyed and replaced with white-niced versions. But 500 years ago, prior to 500 years ago, this is how they were always depicted. And last thing is that this man is the ex-president of Egypt, and he was quoted on television to say, "We can't accept the Jews because they left here black but came back white." So, and he literally said that on television. And yeah, he was murdered not long after that. So yeah, in Psalms it tells you that that all the nations were going to come against these people, and they were going to make sure that their name would be forgotten, and they would forget who they are. And that's what's happened. And all these nations are confederate against them. These are all the nations that Esau mixed with. Because Esau felt cheated of his birthright, yeah, the ancestral hatred has remained, even though he's been spread out across all these different nations. So when the Europeans came to get slaves, not a single African went into slavery. What happened was the slavers came for the Judeans, the Negroes, and it was the Africans who actually sold them into slavery. It was the Arabs and the Africans who sold them into slavery. Right? They didn't sell themselves into slavery. It was the Africans were selling the outsiders, the ones who came in and were actually prospering in the wilderness of their land. So so that dispels that myth that Africans were selling each other into slavery. So on a similar note, who were the Spartans? In one of the books that were left out of the Bible, the Maccabees, it tells you that the Spartans were brethren of the Jews there, the right. Judites there.
Right.
There's a letter to the Lacedaemonians.
Some of this stuff, they just be going on with all that stuff.
Let's join together.
But
so it tells you right there that
you have to watch out for the hijack. They be trying to hijack us.
So that film should have had Denzel Washington playing the guy. So, yeah. So, and who were the Trojans? Well, this is quite amazing for me because I just happened to be reading the Iliad at one point, and I was researching this. And as I was looking at the genealogy chart in the 1611 Bible, the names started to match up with what I was reading in the Iliad. So one of the sons, or great-great-grandsons of Judah, was a guy called Dada. And again, it's in the Iliad that Dada, or Dardanus, was the father of Erichthonius, who was the father of King Tros, who founded Troy. So again, the Israelites were the Trojans. So the Trojans were black too. Slaves also came from Europe, and this is the evidence of it. Obviously, evidence of this kind is kind of scant. You can't find very much around. But every now and again, you find some bit of writing that gives you clues. This is from Benjamin Franklin, 1751, and he says, "Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of us anglifying them, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion?" Okay, saying that they weren't black people. Says, which leads me to add one remark: the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All of Africa is black or tawny brown. Asia chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. Swarthy means black. As are the Germans also. Okay, so he underlines the point: why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America? So literally, the Germans and most Europeans at that time, 1751, were black people.
Watch out for his hat.
It's been rewritten. So this is one of the journeys of the people from the what's known as the Holy Land. From
What's good,
Israel.
finest? The deal is
These are the people called the Iber. Again, very similar to the Ibo and the Igbo in Africa, because Iber comes from the patriarch Eber, who was where the name Hebrew
happy
comes
birthday.
from. Okay, so the Iber travelled across southern Europe and ended up in a place they named after themselves, the Iberian Peninsula.
Go ahead.
And when they were chased out of that area by the barbarians, they founded another country called Hibernia. Again, they named it after themselves.
Happy birthdays to Jews. Oh, I know the turn up is gonna be real. Oh, I know the turn up is gonna be real. Oh shit, I do want to show this though. I know this is a little bit off of what's the name? But I don't want to show this though.
Remember the Concorde? Oh, you're too young for the Concorde. You're too young for the Concorde. Used to fly into outer space, right? What did they find out? There was no curve to the Earth. What did they find out? They can go but so high, the dome will cut them off. They began to say, okay, we have to get rid of this. We have to cause it to crash. And say, well, we found a problem with the Concorde. Well, if you found a problem with one of the planes, why would you stop the entire service?
Hold on, let's go back. Hold up.
Remember the Concorde? Oh, you're too young for the Concorde. You're too young for the Concorde.
Brother Phil Valentine, let's go.
Right? What did they find out? There was no curve to the Earth. What did they find out? They can go but so high, the dome will cut them off. So they began to say, okay, we have to get rid of this. We have to cause it to crash. And say, well, we found a problem with the Concorde. Well, if you found a problem with one of the planes, why would you stop the entire service? Okay, nobody even thought about that. The reason for that is too many people looking out of that little hole, because the holes of the Concorde is about that big, were seeing that the thing was straight across. There was no curve. Because if you're flying in outer space, you're not supposed to see anything. In fact, if you're flying on a curved Earth and you're flying this way, if you don't follow the curved Earth, you'll be flying off into outer space, wouldn't you?
Oh, damn.
You don't ask the pilot, are you constantly adjusting to go down? No, you're not. You're flying straight. we spoke behind the scenes about that. You know, what's about this flat Earth? Because I was reading someone with very profound information. Matter of fact, I always carry his book around. You should see one of his books up there. See the book up there?
Worlds Beyond
Worlds Beyond the Poles. You got to see that book. That book became the catechism for a while. But when I told him about, I got the old manuscript on it, they said, don't talk about that. They said, because the people who the astronomers were dying. It would be like suicided. He just shot himself in the head because of what they were finding. Supposedly, the guy that you see that is in the wheelchair, what's his name? It's a simple Hawkins. He wasn't like that. They caused it because of what he found. And that's not him speaking. That's somebody else speaking through a microphone because he can't speak.
Come on, Phil.
So that's you're watching orchestration.
Come on, Phil.
But as far as flat Earth,
Phil Valentine.
we never taught flat Earth. It's a flat plane. It doesn't end. There is no end to it. There are different areas of habitation, but in our specific envelope, we are in what we call a kind of a Merkaba field. And it's not glass. It's made of what I, at the time, back in those days, said was compressed hydrogen.
Let's go,
now, how do you compress hydrogen? There's no way to compress something that's the first element. Well, they just did it. Now that they did it, everybody's saying, well, yo, Dr. Valentine, I remember you said that the dome was made of compressed hydrogen. And that it was mind-blowing. But now, a little Indian boy, along with a European scientist, actually got hydrogen to a particular way. I don't know how it does it scientifically. So now it's reflecting. You could never get a reflective surface from a hydrogen molecule, but now it's reflecting. So now we're beginning to see that everything being water in different densities. Your air is water. It's just that you're created for a different type of water environment. Oxygen is water, and so is water. So fish breathe there, you breathe here. Right. So being on a flat plane, everything essentially above as below, there are entities in second and third and fourth and fifth dimensions that are directly above us on their own flat plane, looking up at us and you looking up at them. It's like a deep situation, and don't even try to, what do you call it? But I can't speak on it because that's what we teach. So, you know, I don't give too much away. But I let you know that it's a plane. It's not an earth, a flat earth. All of it is a plane. It's the infinite plane actually giving a reflection to the eternal mind, God. See, the God being eternal cannot create anything other than itself. So it doesn't create in little spots. It creates in accordance with its own infinitude, with its own nature of infinity and eternity. So you cannot just say, here, Bill, here, and ain't nothing but space. No, everything is the mind of the Creator. And as the mind of the Creator, it is infinite. Just like you, you are eternal. We have nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. There's no such thing. There are only corporations that mask themselves as countries. And so what he now became was the CEO of a corporation called the United States.
Damn.
So no matter who they put there, the people who pull the strings and flip the switches on those corporations were the ones that dealt with it. So when I looked at his backstory, I knew, of course, where his father came from. But most people didn't know that at the time, whenever you see their factions within the so-called ruling elite, there's always one secret society fighting one another secret society. So right before Trump became president, I put it out there on Facebook that he had gone to Scotland and traveled Ireland and Scotland, where his roots came from. And he was given the monies and the next step from the CFR and, of course, all the rest of them. But he was a part of what was called the Lodge of Solomon. So he's one of the original Masonic lodges. And once he went there, they said they were going to back him. You'll be the next president of the United States. So everybody kind of braced themselves for that. It didn't matter to me who was president because I knew what the game was. But when Trump became president, essentially it was about ending a specific hierarchy who was in charge. A new hierarchy came in, but it was the same work. See, what they do is they have to make sure that you don't get used to or figure out one leadership so that you can countermeasure. They switch you over to a whole other, but it's the same puppeteer playing the same strings. So the thing that I was more concerned about was even putting in Hillary, because Hillary is gangster. She's straight up gangster, but she smiles and she's, what do you call it? But no, she's straight up gangster. She got bodies, she got everything. So putting her in would have been pretty much the same thing, but we would have been already at war with somebody. So we are either to choose the apple or the orange, but then both came from a tainted tree. The problem is that we are not prepared to do any counterattack, countermeasures. We're not prepared. So they're moving along, and I would tell everybody by the year 2020, moving into the year 2020, to year 2025, and then 2050. These are the pivotal points that you're going to see the New World Order finally step out into the light. And when they do, they'll have shown everything. But are we prepared to take the next step to counter that? We're not. It's going to be countered by the people. Are the people going to wake up and know that Black Lives Matter, the New World Order, all the rest of these are all linked? Hopefully one day you begin to understand that there are no factions. There are only corporations who are pulling the strings, who are setting us up for a genocidal move towards cropping the populations of the planet and removing a certain amount of useless eaters and useless breeders. Now, this sounds like conspiracy theory. You better understand that as we move towards transhumanism, from the time what they call the construction, the new constructive era, when they started dealing with more technologies after World War I and World War II, they needed bodies to mine the fields and the slaves so they could pick cotton, make sugar, and to pick sugar cane. When they began to mechanize, they needed less bodies. Now that they become computerized, they need less people to do the same thing, to control and to rule. So they have to get rid of all the people that they allowed to be
Are y'all listening?
who they had nothing, they had no future to actually allow them to be in. So now that they have this surplus of people, you got to create wars and stuff so we can start cropping the population. The people they're sending over there to the Middle East and so, they don't want them coming back. You have to understand that these people are cannon fodder. They'll come back. The ones that come back, you're supposed to salute and to fly and all that. No, there's no country. There's no flag. There's no anthem. These are for the people who are what we call the sheeple, or the thousand-headed ass. They need a rallying cry because the elite need to know that the people under them are under some form of control. If they're fighting one another, they don't look at the elite who's creating the conditions and they don't fight them. Right. These people who are in control, they guide human nature to what they want human nature to be. And they have the plans and the resources in place to make sure that the paradigm that they're creating for you to believe in has the support so that the commercials, the movies, the television shows, they all dovetail into the plan itself. You're being orchestrated, like they said in the Matrix, you're being orchestrated. So what we're looking at, essentially, is what we teach in our school. We call it synthetic synchronicity. What is synthetic synchronicity? If I set up a pattern of behavior and I have a goal, problem, reaction, solution. If I have a goal to achieve, then I know I need to make sure that there are certain things in place so that those who are to be the cattle that move along a specific pattern to end up at that goal must see certain things in place to reassure them that that goal is something that they should believe in. What happens? He was a playwright writing a movie. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody is doing that. It was called, I think it was Zbigniew Brzezinski, a blueprint for a new America, or blueprint for a new United States, or something like that. Those of you out there know what I'm talking about. They already planned 70 years ago to 100 years ago exactly where we would be going, technologically, socially, educationally, and everything else.
Boom. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I ain't even. Y'all. It's wild out here. I'm just saying. Mm-mm. Yeah, I'm about to take my butt in this crib. Y'all know I had to come drop a little heavyweight shit on y'all dinner plate. I know it. That's what I be saying. You know, I just come and try to do my little part, my little old part. You know, I just try to stick in my lane, play my little position. That's it. You know what I'm saying? I try to stick in my little lane, play my little position. You know, when I find it and I hear it and shit sound like something, I'll bring it to y'all. That's just how it go. You know. I'm gonna take my butt in this house. About to have to wake this little boy up. He about to fight me. I already know because he went to sleep late. So yeah, I'm done. Matter of fact, I'm about to hit you right now. I'm about to hit you right now because I need to. What's the name? Yeah, you know me. I'll be busy and shit and all that now. But I'm about to hit you right now though because I need to find out some more information about that, where to go and what to do and stuff. But y'all know what I'm about to say. Until I come back, y'all keep it motherfucking flat. 1,000.